Honda Jazz and the Maruti Suzuki Baleno are at the moment the top dogs in the premium hatchback space, and both of them are vying for exactly the same kind of customer. Someone who wants a big, roomy cabin, a large enough boot for the weekend, and a punchy petrol motor. All that, along with the fuel-efficient engines, is something that both these cars offer. So, which one is the better choice and which one should you buy? Let's find out on the show today. Well, as soon as I stepped inside the cabin of the new Honda Jazz, I realized that whoever has designed this car is obsessed with water bottles and cup holders, just like I am, because this car has not one, not two, but 9 places where you can keep those big bottles, and that's a good thing for anyone who enjoys a long trip on the highway. And the best of those cup holders is over here, right in front of the air conditioning vent, where the water remains cold even on the hottest of summer day. So excellent attention to detail from Honda. Well, talking about the good points first, you will realize that the cabin of the Jazz feels a lot more roomier and brighter than the one on the Baleno, and that's largely due to the fact that the seat fabric over here is all beige, unlike the Baleno, which is all black. Also, the glass area on this car is much bigger than on the Baleno. You also get this small quarter window over here, which gives you better visibility when you are cornering this car or going through a tight space. In terms of plastic quality, both these cars are neck and neck. There's hardly anything to choose between them. Well, in terms of seat comfort, again, both these cars are neck and neck. The support for the lower back is as good in the Jazz as it is in the Baleno, and the seat scob is both wide as well as long in both the cars. So even if you are a tall passenger or someone who spends a lot of time inside his car, then you have plenty of support for those under thighs. Well, so here I'm inside the Baleno's cabin, and as you can see, it's an all black cabin. There is, of course, a little bit of silver around, and all that means that this car feels a lot more sportier, and the dials also look a lot more sporty than they do on the Honda Jazz. You also get this huge 7-inch touchscreen over here, which works as the navigation device, also works as the infotainment system, as well as the reverse view parking camera's viewfinder, and all these things give it a very nice feel-good factor about the cabin. In terms of seat comfort, you sit much lower inside this car than you do in the Honda Jazz, which also adds to the sporty feel, and overall the comfort is very similar to the Jazz. There's hardly anything to choose between these two cars when it comes to overall seat comfort. Well, so here I'm in the back seat of the Honda Jazz, and as you can see, headroom is more than adequate for even someone who is my height, which for reference is 5'10". So if you are someone who is 6 foot or taller than that, this car should not be a problem, even if you prefer to sit upright like this. Knee room is massive, to say the least. It really is in a league of its own, the Honda Jazz, when it comes to sheer knee room as well as headroom over here in the back seat. And there's a little place below the front seats where I can put my feet to have greater comfort. The floor panel over here is almost flattish, which means whoever sitting in the middle has plenty of place to stretch his feet. And just like the front seats, even the rear end of this car feels a lot more spacious and a lot more airier and larger than the one on the Baleno, and that's largely because this car comes with beige fabric instead of black. Also, the windows at the back are really big, which means that you don't feel claustrophobic on those long highway trips. Well, my height for reference is 5'10", so if you are someone who is 5'10" or 5'11", then you have decent amount of headroom in the Baleno. But if you are someone who is 6 foot or taller and prefer to sit upright like this, your head will definitely rub against the roof over here. So you will prefer the back seat of the Jazz compared to this car. What also makes the Jazz's seat better than the Baleno is the fact that the squab, the cushioning for the squab, is both wider as well as better supported, which means that under thigh support is better in the Jazz. Well, but that said, the Baleno offers you good amounts of knee room for even taller passengers. There's plenty of place below the front seats to stretch your feet, and it is a pretty wide car at the back, which means that you can sit 3 over here in comfort just as much as you can in the Jazz. What also puts the Baleno slightly behind the Jazz in terms of rear seat comfort is the fact that the window and the glass area on this car is definitely a lot smaller than it is on the Jazz, which means that for those long highway trips, you might end up feeling a little claustrophobic if you are someone sitting over here in the back seat. The Honda Jazz clearly has the advantage when it comes to the boot department. And why is that? Well, not only is it a much bigger boot in terms of overall capacity, but it's also easier to load because there's no loading sill, and the floor is also much lower from the ground. That said, the Baleno is more than adequate for a weekend trip to the hills. But that huge loading lip means that you have to put in your back when you are putting in a heavy object. Well, so here I'm driving the Honda Jazz Petrol, and remember both the Jazz as well as the Baleno come with a 1.2 litre petrol motor. Well, the Honda Jazz's petrol motor offers you 90 bhp of outright power. Well, unlike the Baleno, which does have something in it for the keen driver, the Jazz really isn't one of the better cars for sporty drivers. But remember, at the end of the day, people who are buying these cars aren't really buying these cars for sporty handling, but they are buying them because of their mature as well as sensible rides. Well, in terms of overall engine refinement, it really is neck and neck between both these cars, and there's hardly anything to choose between them. Well, at slow city speeds, the Jazz's suspension also works pretty well. It does soak in the bumps quite nicely. In terms of slow city speeds, there's hardly anything to choose between both these cars, but yes, when it comes to highway speeds, the Jazz definitely has the advantage. Well, even though you do get these huge windows all across, which means that rear visibility is excellent, what Honda have missed out is on rear sensors. They have given you a big screen which doubles up as the reverse parking camera's viewfinder. And to be honest, this really is a fantastic car for anyone who wants a hassle-free peace of mind as well as no-nonsense mode of communication when you are driving it in the city. Well, so here I am driving the Maruti Suzuki Baleno Petrol, and remember this car comes with a 1.2 litre engine, so in terms of displacement it's exactly the same as the Honda Jazz, but in terms of power it's slightly below the Jazz. This engine makes about 85 bhp of power, which is about 5 bhp lower than the Honda Jazz's unit. This car is almost about 100 odd kilos lighter than the Jazz, so in terms of performance it feels a lot more sprightly and it feels a lot more alert as well as ready to pounce. In terms of handling, the Baleno certainly has the sporty edge over the Jazz, and that's because the steering wheel on this car offers you a little more communication than the Jazz, and the chassis on this car also feels a lot more agile. It likes to change lanes much faster than the Jazz does. Well, in isolation, the suspension on the Baleno is pretty good, but compared to the Honda Jazz, in terms of highway usage, the Jazz has the advantage. The Baleno is slightly behind that car because it does not have the same amount of rock solid feel or maturity about its ride comfort like the Jazz does. Well, where both cars are neck and neck and almost similar is in the overall engine responsiveness as well as overall engine refinement, and both engines start responding pretty low in their RPM range, and both of them love to be revved hard. And just like the Jazz, even the Baleno has a very sporty note on the exhaust when you push the accelerator pedal down. So in that sense, they are pretty good engines. Well, one department where the Baleno has the clear advantage over the Jazz is in fuel efficiency. Well, Maruti claims an efficiency figure in excess of over 20 kpl for the manual version of this car, and even for the automatic, those figures are quite high. Well, one more area where the Honda Jazz seems to have a slight advantage over the Baleno is the fact that it offers you huge windows, and the cabin also feels a lot more brighter because it uses beige. Remember, this car uses an all-black cabin, so it can start to feel a bit dreary and a bit boring on those long trips. Well, even though the Jazz might offer you bigger windows and a more airier and brighter cabin, it is the Baleno which offers you a much more feel-good factor about its cabin, and that's largely because of these stylish dials as well as this touchscreen over here, which also has Apple's CarPlay system, which means that if you have an Apple iPhone with you, you can mirror the apps on that phone onto the system over here. So it's really very convenient and also makes this cabin very desirable indeed. Well, while both these cars might offer you the same amounts of space inside, both of them offer you completely different personalities. If you are someone who wants a sporty car, then you should definitely check out the Maruti Suzuki Baleno. It also comes with a long list of features, most of which offer you a very good feel-good factor about yourself. But that said, the Honda Jazz comes across as a hassle-free, no-nonsense and very easy to live with hatchback for daily city use. And it also has a very big boot and a very mature ride for those long highway trips. That said, the Baleno has the slight advantage because it sells from Maruti's premium retail outlets called the Nexa, and that gives it a certain feel-good factor that the Jazz certainly misses out on. But overall, both these cars are excellent choices and you simply cannot go wrong with either one of them.